Hello, Soul Family. I have a beautiful treat for you today, a shamanic journey or a story for 2025. This came through me actually a couple years ago as I was starting to write a playbook surrounding story and how we actually can use it for our liberation. And so, as I was starting to write some of these stories, I put them down in a notebook and I revisited it recently. And it felt like I was guided to be there and guided to read it to help me understand what the year 2025 is and what it offers us or the opportunity that it offers for us. Now, shamanic storytelling is very different from what normal storytelling might be. If you have been with a really good storyteller, though, someone who perhaps talks about fairy tales and other things like that, this is kind of an entry of what could understand as soul story, because we're dealing with archetypes, we're dealing with these soul lessons and experiencing and expressing in different energies. As you travel through this journey, this story, I invite you to step into the different perspectives of the individuals that I talk about. First, there is kind of the lead main character, the lead rancher. There are the cows themselves. You're like, cows? This has cows in it? Yes. And they speak. And this is what's so magical. They speak. Now, there's the neighboring rancher and his family, his wife. So, one of the ways you can step into the experience even further is stepping into the experience of being these different people, feeling into the wisdom that they have and where they are at. Now, if you're with the rancher and perhaps he's speaking and maybe it doesn't quite connect with you, but maybe there's another voice that comes through and you hear it and you're like, oh, that's what that means to me. That's where perhaps I'm stuck, or this is something that I'm holding on to. Make sure to write it down in your notebook or journal. Here's one of them that's available through Hot Muffin Media. You can look it up on our website. And you can just write down and document so that you can see the places that you're visiting. Perhaps there's a place that you want to revisit, and you can hear the voices that are important to you at the moment. So I encourage you to jump in and be with this shamanic journey. And then when you're done, if you feel like it's not quite connecting with you, you can sit down with your guides and ask if there is a shamanic story that can come through you for your 2025. Wisdom, love, consciousness, here to support you in the transitions that are happening in your life. So I hope you enjoy this beautiful shamanic story and that you jump into your very own soul play today. Feel free to look me up anytime too. I'd love to soul play with you.
This is Soul Play.
He's always kind of competing with a neighboring ranch because he wants to have as many cows or more cows than this other ranch. And to him, that means that he is the best, that he is providing the best, that he is doing the best, right? And he wants to be the best for his community, for his family, and all this. And so he's out tending his cows, and a cow comes up to him and the cow says, we know that you are here to serve the people, and we are here to serve the people. And so there are changes and shifts that are happening in the world, and we were wondering if each one of us cows could turn ourselves into 100 turkeys each for you. And the man looks at him and says, wow, that's a lot of turkeys, because he's got 89 cows, right? It's a lot of turkeys, right? But then he says, no, right? Because I'm waiting for my last cow to birth so that I can have more cows than my neighbor. And then people will know that I'm successful, right? People will know I am successful then. And, and so the cow says, all right, and steps back into the field and starts munching on the grass again. And the next day he goes out, and this cow gives birth, and he's like, yes, I'm so great, look at me now, I'm the best. And he calls the newspaper and he rings his bell, and his family comes out and they celebrate. And once they're done celebrating, the cow comes up again to him, and the cow says, all right, we, now that you have your accolades, we still wish to serve the people. And so we were wondering if you would allow us 90 cows to turn into 900 turkeys. And he's like, okay, wait a minute. That's a lot less than what was offered before, right? First, it was, and he's like, well, first of all, of course, he wants to serve the people. But then he's like, you know what? What if the newspaper comes to see his cows and document that he actually has the cows that he wants? What if his neighbor rancher comes to make sure to see that he has all these cows that he says he has? Gosh, he'd be sure look like a fool if people show up and instead of cows, there's turkeys here, right? How embarrassing, right? So he's like, no, of course I want to serve the people, but gosh, I don't want to be made a fool of, right? I don't want to look like a fool. So no, I think I'm good. I'm happy with cows, right?
Yeah.
And so he goes home and he celebrates with his family again, and they sit around the fire and they talk about what they want to do in life. And then the next morning he comes out and he looks out on his field to see his cows, and he sees all of these cows laying dead on the property. They're just dead, and the last ones are dying in front of him, and he's heart-stricken. He's like, what has just happened? It's just like that, all of my beautiful cows are gone. And his neighbor drives up and he jumps out of the truck and he sees what's happening. He's like, oh, I hoped that this wasn't going to happen to you. And the rancher says, oh my gosh, now you have the most cows in the ranch and you've won, rancher. And the other rancher says, what do you mean? I traded my cows for chickens a while back. I guess you didn't notice, did you? And he said, I know that we've been competing for so long. I hoped that just like I was, brought up by the animal itself, given the opportunity, I hoped that you would listen to the cow, the nature telling you that something was changing, something was shifting. And the rancher, the original rancher, was just, the heart was so heavy. He was so sad. And he comes into his family just forlorn, doesn't know what he's going to do. And he turns to his family and he lights the fire in the fireplace. And I love fire because we're talking about this kind of a story. It's kind of soul. It's a soul language for us to hear, right? It's a soul language. And the family lights the fire and they're all sitting around. And as he's morose, he looks at each one of his family and he sees into their souls. He sees the beautiful gems that they are and that they've come to the fire again and again and again. And they're these beautiful gems. And he turned to them and he said, I'm so sorry. He's like, my cows have died and I feel like I die with them. And I don't know who will care for you. And I love you, my family. And this hits me so much. I wanted to be there for you, but it seems that I leaned on accolades more than being of true service to you and to the people of the land. And I'm afraid I die. And his wife turns to him, very lovingly and holds his hand and says, then you die just like we do. Everyone dies and is reborn, and we've done this so many times. And so if you die, die and offer up what has been and rise the next morning to something new and be something new. And so this is what the farmer does. He goes to bed, and as he goes to bed, he offers up what he had been. And as he wakes up in the morning, his heart, his body feels different. His heart is open, and he steps out into his fields, and he sees in awe this space of awe, of wonder, instead of him having this specific goal that had to be in order for him to feel confident. He was walking through an awe and wonder and asking, what can happen now? What is ready to come forward now? What is ready to bloom now? So this is the story. This is kind of a shamanic story for people. And you can look at it in this new year. We get to rebirth ourselves. We get to open our hearts in new ways. We get to walk forward in new ways. And we get to listen in new ways. What's ready? Because what was before is being rebirthed. It's being rebirthed. And he asked himself that night, if the cows offered themselves up as something new, how could I offer myself up as something new? These dedicated cows ready to offer themselves for the people. How can I offer myself as something new? So this is the shamanic story. That was fun to tell.
No, it's a really great story.